Man, happy Friday.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome back to another episode of Always Almost There, Day After Show Live. We are very excited to be here in the Shohio of Michigan. Yes, after last night, I think we can safely say that Grand Rapids is the Shohio of Michigan. Neil, wouldn't you agree?
I would say our guest is the Shohio of Michigan. Can we say that?
Honestly, yeah.
I think he kind of is.
He
we talk about
is.
him a lot, so I'm really stoked about this
Our
one.
guest is the Shohio of Michigan. Thank you. We're coming out of the gate strong today with an oi from the mother. That's all good. But yes, you know what? Let's just bring our guest on and we'll do our intro. But ladies and gentlemen, the Shohio of Michigan himself, Captain Incredible, aka Jeff. Hi, Jeff. How are you?
What's up, Lisa? Gentlemen, nice to see you. Cheers.
He's also known as the Cleveland Arrow of AAT guests.
Don't insult him like that.
Yeah. I don't know how to take that one.
Yeah, that's not the most positive.
Yeah, it's like saying I'm really amazing in the moment, but like once you go away and reflect, it's like I don't know about that guy.
Well, we're here. It's Friday. We are in the final stop of Winter Tour. Of course, Goose is back in the U.S., which means they're back to playing really amazing shows. And I think it's really funny that they took a page out of the Fish playbook where they went to Toronto and played some very solid shows that probably in the grand scheme of the year will not be super remarkable.
And remember, I think is the word you were looking for.
Yeah, and then promptly crossed the border again and just blew the doors off of everything last night. I'm glad that I had the forethought that might happen and decided to come to this Grand Rapids run because last night was amazing. But yes, 5 shows with a couple of jams. Jeff, let's start with you. Top level thoughts. How are you feeling going into last night? Because I know it's been a while since your last Goose show.
It has, yeah. My last show was actually Cleveland. I had a slow year for Goose last year. Life got in the way, and just the runs I wanted to go to weren't always feasible. But at any rate, yes, I went in with pretty high expectations. I was very much hoping that we would move back towards the Milwaukee caliber of music. And, Toronto shows were cool, but I wanted to see that adventurous, fearless band improv just carry throughout the nights. And I mean, I felt like last night kicked off stronger than Milwaukee night one did. Definitely. I mean, Milwaukee night one was good, but it had a couple of really great parts, but I think Milwaukee got better as time went on. And last night, maybe it's just in the room attendance bias. Maybe I've been away for too long, but that was a really good show.
And I think, seeing them in a room this small is amazing. Like at GLC Live at 20 Monroe is around 2,500, which is the same capacity as has History in Toronto. But History is a much bigger room, a lot more floor. This one has like a mezzanine and a balcony that gets kind of vertical. So first of all, I don't think there's really a bad spot in the room here, which comes with a venue of this size. But it was so undersold last night for a 2,500 person venue. And also that Saturday is sold out. Like I heard there were only 1,600 tickets sold last night, which is
I would believe that,
which is insane for a band that has already sold upwards of 15,000 for MSG at the end of June. Yes. A Thursday night, beginning of a 3-night run.
It's a Thursday night. It snowed,
right. But still, it's interesting to see that. But seeing them in such a small room was amazing. And obviously, we've been talking about the light rig every episode so far. But getting to see it, even more up close than I did in Toronto was such a treat. But yeah, same as you, Jeff, going in hoping we're going to see that Milwaukee spirit of adventure come back, and they did. Neil, how are you feeling going into last night's show? Obviously,
well, just kind of picking up on what you guys are saying, like the question leaving Milwaukee or leaving Toronto actually was Milwaukee a flash in the pan? Was it just a thing, 3 shows and they're done? Or is this a sign of a band kind of changed a little bit and, going to uncharted territory, as it were? And I think last night's show was a sign in the direction of, this band sounds a little bit different and we're excited about them. It's not just that, they had a nice 3-show run and that's what it was. And then, Toronto happened. But yeah, man, that's what I was thinking coming into this. I think some of our questions might have been answered. We still have tonight and tomorrow night. So
Yeah.
Yeah, man,
But
it was exciting. It was refreshing to get a nice show. What felt like a really good show after a couple shows that felt kind of, towards the floor of the high floor, as you
exactly. Well, let's dive into the show here. Really interesting to start off with two songs that we got on Monday night in Toronto. Like it was immediately we were joking like, oh, did they forget that they went to Canada? Or they like, but Mr. Action, All I Need, Lead Up to start immediately. We're seeing, I mean, the segue from All I Need to Lead Up obviously just kind of starts the night off on a note that we'll see throughout the first set mostly, but so many incredible transitions last night. Really love that. And, yes, all three of these songs are openers. And you could say it's a 3-pack of openers, but this is not the same as, Mr. Action, Cali Magic, Hot Love. You're getting Mr. Action, warming the crowd up, and then you're right into jamming with All I Need, which was amazing. Like this song ended, and I was so shocked when I looked at my watch and it had been under 15 minutes. And this is the thing that kind of permeates last night. You have one song that hits 20, but there are so many jams that I want to go back to. And listening back today, I was like, wow, like this holds up. They're being so efficient. And that's one of the things, Neil, that you have really been harping on about Goose since December. Like they're mastering getting a lot done in a 15-minute time span, which is amazing. And this All I Need really gets there like instantly. And just really, really happy about that. This felt like a very solid do-over from the unfortunate ripcord on Monday. But Jeff, what were your thoughts on the first 3 songs here last night?
Yeah, I mean, Mr. Action is always good near the beginning of the show. I'm a 2-hole Mr. Action guy, but this was it fit great there. When they started All I Need, I had one of those moments that I sometimes do where I think, is this the one? Is this the one? Will there ever be the one? I don't know. But especially if I'm there, I'm always hoping like, well, maybe if they do it, I'll randomly just be
for
there.
You. Like they know that you're in the building. Yeah.
Yeah. And they didn't, but they did what they usually do when I show up for All I Need, and they played a really strong version. And I mean, to your point, yes, it was efficient. They're not wasting time getting into the good stuff. There's no 5 minutes of noodling around a basic chord progression, just trying to find something interesting to click into. I mean, they are diving headfirst into the improv or the ether almost immediately upon exiting the composed parts of these songs. And I mean, we saw it happen at least 5-6 times last night to great effect.
Sure.
Yeah, to great effect. And that's the point that I want to make. It's like when we talk about this All I Need and we say how fast they got there, oh boy, did they go crashing headfirst into whatever there is a little bit later in this show.
Yeah.
Really excited to talk about that. But yeah, you get your Mr. Action, you get your lead up. These are the first set songs we expect to see. It's just like getting, I don't know, like Big River in a Grateful Dead set, like it's coming in the first set. It's coming.
Yeah.
And it's all good stuff. I don't know. I like Goose music. I was thinking about this the other day. I actually listened to this.
What a concept.
This morning. Yeah. Well, I think
wrong pod, man. Wrong pod.
And I think people listening to our podcast might think that we don't like Goose music sometimes because we roll our eyes and we say, oh, Mr. Action and this a lot. Oh, shit.
But we also podcast about it every day.
Yeah. Yeah. So I just taking a moment here to say, I like the flow of this. I like the Mr. Action. I like the All I Need. I like the lead up, all in the spots that they're in. Mm-hmm. We're going to talk about the next couple of songs. Like what I love about what makes a really good first set for me is when you get multiple jams in that first set. They could have just stopped at this All I Need, kind of ended the set with So Ready and maybe threw a flow down in there, and it would have just kind of felt flat. But this actually has a couple jams in the set, which we're just about to talk about. One of my favorite ones of the show in a second. But that flow to me is good. So, I dig these songs. Lead up crushes. So I can listen to him play it all the time.
Yeah.
Some people don't dig the song, but I love it.
For me,
can I say something about Lead Up real quick?
Yes.
Yeah, man.
I love Lead Up. I always get excited about it. From the first time they played it, I've been convinced it's maybe their best song. It's not one of their top 2 best songs. But it's exciting to me that I believe there's now actually a recorded version of it that's going to be on an album.
Yep.
And so being able to hear them play songs like Give It Time and Lead Up, which is obviously going to be another single off this album because they'd be crazy to not make it a single off the album. It's so exciting to see these, you know, maybe big hit singles of tomorrow in, you know, the incubation phase. You know, I don't know, it's cool, you know, to see them hit right now, you know, songs that are going to be on, you know, people all over the country's tongue, whether they like Goose or not. You know, it's interesting to be hearing those now. It's just one of those interesting things about Goose with sort of their accessibility and radio friendliness that you don't always see in other jam bands. And I find it interesting. So yeah, seeing Lead Up now is just, it's more exciting than ever now that there's this recorded version looming, right?
Absolutely. Another thing I want to call attention to that you reminded me of, Jeff, when you mentioned, you know, the lack of an All I Need second jam, is that you have in this show, you have, say, like 5 big jam songs, you know, that jam, and 4 of them are unfinished. And one of the things I've been saying for a really long time about Goose is like, let go of the, we need to come back and finish that song later. It's okay to do what they did last night and like get out there and not need to come back to the ending of the song. Like, I love that they're letting these jams just go out and, like, you know, they don't need to find All I Need again. They don't need to come back to the ending of Flea. Like, Arrows being unfinished, Half Step now unfinished. Like,
where do you draw the line, Ryan? Because you seem to have a big issue with Mist.
Well, so there are certain songs where the ending
really
carries a lot of weight, which is, I would say, Mist and like Big Modern.
Gotcha.
But like, you know, I don't think I don't think the ending of All I Need is really essential to the song. Like, I think the ending of Big Modern is a very essential part of that song. But
fair. Okay, I'll take that.
My point is also, like, I mean, for jams like Big Modern and Mist, like the Milwaukee Big Modern had a very easy path to the ending, and then they bailed for some reason. I you know, I'm of the mind of like, if you're there and you're peaking and you're able to slip back into the ending very nicely, do it. But forcing it is not necessary. And if you do what happened last night and you just get out there and you know, you don't need to find your way back. And so I think it's really cool that they're kind of in a space now where they're comfortable doing that. You know, you don't see the All I Need ending or the Flea ending or the Arrow ending come back at the end of the set, you know, just to kind of get it in there. And I was kind of expecting that at some point last night, but they didn't. And that was great. Next up here, big segment, Flea, Atlas Dogs, Inside Out, Moby. I would like to call attention to the fact that this is the first Moby to ever appear in a first set of a 2-set show. It has been in a few festival sets or 1-setters, but this is the first time they have played Moby in a 2-set show in the first set. I was very excited about that. But this Flea is, I mean, amazing. This is one of my favorite jams of the night. Also of note, you know, we talked about Rosewood coming off of its longest break ever the other day. This is the longest gap between versions of Time to Flee in the song's history. 25 last played on October 24th, 2024 in Nashville. Crazy to be on the bench for that long. But this is, again, a trend we're seeing this tour. They start the jam. Rick is down on his pedals doing the loops. And as you said, Jeff, you described it perfectly, like getting off into the ether. And then Atlas Dogs, you know, the segue there, amazing.
Yeah, good one.
You know, Atlas Dogs jam starts and is basically just a launch pad to segue into Inside Out. Again, great transition. And then Inside Out into Moby, another amazing segue. Like, I love what they did here. But Neil, let's start with you for this one. What did you think of this, you know, the meat of the first set, so to speak?
I mean, there's a lot to like about this. There's good stuff all over the place, little bits here and there. And then, of course, some great jamming that you get in the Time to Flee, a multifaceted jam that has a couple different parts. Like Jeff said, gets out into the ether right off the bat, and then goes to a couple different places that sound incredible. Actually, it's been a while since I felt this good about a Flea.
Yeah.
But maybe it's just because it's been a while since I've listened to a Flea because they don't play them anymore. But what are the last 2 gaps? Can I ask you that, since it seems like you have that pulled up?
25 and 11.
So 24 and 10. That's a lot. So in 34 shows, only 2 of them. That's
Well,
a
there was
year.
there was a 0 show gap in there actually because they played it. They sandwiched it in Nashville.
Did you just say 0 show gap?
Yeah,
Oh,
because it
you
was
just
played
made
in the
my
same
day,
show.
Brian.
No, because it was played in the same show. So it's
Oh,
a
in the
0 show
same
gap.
show. Oh,
Yeah,
yeah. So
it's a 0 show gap.
that's never mind. So forget it. In any case, we have some good jamming there. You said the segue. Yes, of course, that segue is amazing into Atlas Dogs. And then, we're doing all the bits today, Lisa. I'll explain the Toronto thing later. But you actually have a hand in the Toronto thing. So, yes, the transition to Atlas Dogs, good. Atlas Dogs, just Atlas Dogs. And then they drop into this space that it wasn't clear what they were doing. It was a transition into Inside Out, but it was awesome. I don't know how else to describe it. Like, I don't even know how they came up with that space, and they all collectively got there. Must have been practiced. And then you get this incredible vibe through that intro into Inside Out, through Moby. A little bit of a hard right turn into Moby. Friend of the pod, Adam, was saying earlier today that, it'd be nice if they could find a smoother way to get there because it would sound a lot cooler. But most of their transitions to Moby are jarring.
I thought last night was smoother than Moby usually is. I agree with you that it's usually jarring, but I thought last night was great.
Yeah, it was less jarring than the other ones. That doesn't mean it's still not jarring. But it's still a vibe. Like, once you get there, all is forgiven, right? And then we talking about the flow down the clay. I mean, we might as well slap it on there.
And you slap it on there like they did,
a little bit of do before you walk off for set break. I don't know. You guys talk about it. You were in the room.
Yeah, there you go. Jeff, talk to us. Flee through the end.
Yeah, I mean, 3 great jams in this set. All I Need, Time to Flee, and Inside Out all had very strong jams. And I think, a component that excited me a lot about each of them was that drop into the ether thing that we were talking about, that spacey, looping, almost ambient rolling thing that they'll do with the, little kiss of digital delay loop placed out under the bottom of it. This is the Eugene Bourne style, and this is also something that they brought up during some other performances. But to me, it felt like this show was, especially this first set, I mean, it was anchored around that style of music. They never stayed in it for too long. I don't think they ever sat in it for more than 6 minutes or so at a time, but they kept coming back to it and finding new ways to build out of it. Interestingly, and in Flee they went into some almost fishy sounding stuff, and in Inside Out, it just got progressively weirder and weirder and weirder until it eventually melted into Moby. But I live and breathe for this type of weirdness. Like, I'm a Eugene Bourne enthusiast, so I was just in my happy place through this entire set. I was like, it's like they are playing repeatedly the style of music that I think makes me happiest from this band that used to be a niche case, and now, like, here's the show that seems anchored around it, and I was super stoked for that. So and thanks for bringing that to Grand Rapids, guys. And Atlas Dogs and Flowdown were both well played versions, I thought. I mean, they were strong, they were commanding, good flow intro, and and that Moby, they earned the Moby. They earned the first set Moby. I know sometimes we joke about earning a song. they
Moby doesn't need to be earned. Moby.
It doesn't need to be, but
play it every show.
But it fit there. It wasn't just like, oh, hey, it's Moby now. Like,
sure,
it was a natural progression coming out of the style of jam they were doing in that Inside Out. It worked. So yeah, that's my thoughts on first set. Loved that set.
Amazing. Well, set break. I mean, I think, as we talked about it, just the vibe in there last night was amazing. Like, everyone was just so excited, that everyone was raving about the first set, excited for what they might do in the second. I think at this point, based on the set listing in the first set, I was like, I don't really know what's going to happen. Neil, do you know off the top of your head what the top score in fantasy was last night?
I think it was 26.
Okay.
Actually, let's take a moment. Can we take a moment since you brought it up? I just want to say a thing.
Sure.
So 2 people won last night. One person whose name I didn't recognize. The other person who won, Haps Jr., destroying his dad once again. Like, high fives at, Haps Jr. There you go, Rob. So we love that Haps Jr. is playing. He's 12 years old. He is a prodigy.
Better than his father.
without a doubt.
Not a high
and I've been
bar.
giving his dad a hard time about it, but kudos to his dad for getting his son to play the game.
Yes.
It's an amazing thing.
What about sons who get their dad to play? Do I get
Also
credit
works.
for that?
Yeah, no, not as much credit. It's a little bit different. Yeah.
Yes. Shout out to Habs Jr. For winning last night. But my point on the fantasy front was they played a lot of songs that were not really expected last night. I don't know how you two did last night. I only hit 2 songs. I hit Flow and I hit So Ready. But like, obviously you're not expecting All I Need is Mr. Action to come up again. Shout out to whoever was the one person who picked Mr. Action last night.
The one guy. It was
the
just
one guy, one out of like 150. But there were a lot of curveballs again. But so my point going into the second set is like, usually, when I'm at a show, I can be like, all right, like I think we're due for, a Thatch in the second set. I think we're going to get, the drip field tonight. And last night I was like, I don't know what they're going to play. Repeats are obviously on the table. And like, I was thinking like they might bring Thatch back out, after just playing it in the encore on Monday. Like we already had 2 Monday songs come back. So it's possible. So I was just excited to see what happened because I knew based on that first set, whatever happened in the second set was going to be awesome. Jeff, how were you feeling at set break last night?
Yeah, I made a nice vibey set break. I was just kind of glowing from how good that first set was. I was down on the floor and, took the opportunity to squeeze my way probably another, 10, 15 people forward and get a little closer to the center. Showed up late last night, so it was kind of in the back corner, kind of near where you were actually. But then during set break, moved up a little bit and just got, I knew that they were going to come out swinging with that second set because of what they had done first set. There was no way, there was no other scenario. And then ultimately they came out and, as soon as they hit the opening notes to the first song in the second set, I was like, oh yeah, this is perfect. This is like this song itself and the jams that tend to come out of it are the natural progression to the journey that started in that first set. It was like, yeah, super sure.
2025 is going to be the year of Everything Must Go, and I'm not talking about the album.
It's both. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think they've unlocked now, how to jam this song in a way that really works for them. And I think we're going to be seeing a lot more consistent, like set anchoring versions like this one. Last year they played it a lot and there were a lot of really good versions, but there was only one in the bracket, right? Like there haven't been as many standard Everything Must Goes, and we're already 2 shows into the year and we have 2 Everything Must Goes that are excellent jams. So I think last night was an amazing way to open the second set. And yeah, as you said, Jeff, like they're covering so much ground here. They're getting into that kind of like darker, but not straight up evil jam in the second half of this. Rick's tone, that whatever effect it is, I don't know if it's like more distortion or an octave or whatever he does when he like gets down and dirty like that. It just sounds so amazing because it has so much grit to it, but it still remains so articulate and clear what he's playing. And so that just comes across so well. And I want to save my time to talk a lot longer about the next song. But yeah, blown away by this Everything Must Go and how it opened up the second set. But let's throw it to you, Jeff. How are you feeling for this EMG?
I mean, I loved it. Like I was saying, as soon as they opened it, I said, this is the way that you continue what was happening in that first set. And I feel like with this, they took some of that, just egalitarian looping churn vibe thing that they do, but they were able to just turn the dial up to 11 with this one really and just go all out. And it was a really great way to open that second set. And can I say that this was also an audible? Everything Must Go wasn't on the set list last night. Yeah, something else was supposed to open it. This wasn't even on it. And I'm sure there was a discussion backstage during set break that said like, we need to scrap the plans for the second set and do this instead. And it's pretty obvious that's what they did if you look at the real set versus the written set list.
They had an insane written set list last night.
Can you just read off the written set list? Because we were talking about it last night, and it was just like, what on earth happened to this
I gotta
show?
find it.
They threw it out at set break. They said this doesn't work for what.
Yeah, does anyone remember who skeeted it?
I don't know.
It's in a
we
chat.
can find it while we talk about the show, and so like I'll pick up the everything must go discussion because this is actually in my notes. A couple things. Ryan, you touched on the tone. Rick does have this kind of fuzzed out tone that doesn't melt notes into each other, which like kind of fuzz pedals do, and it has a really beefy sound to it. But I like how you put it. There's a grit, but he can still articulate the notes well. That is killer. But the thought of EMG being a jam vehicle is really exciting. Actually, they only have a handful of guaranteed banger songs, right? And I've been saying for a while now, since the Stone Pony 2 years ago, almost now, that this song is going to be a jam vehicle. We saw glimpses of it back then, and they got progressively better. Boston, I think, was really good that year. Yep. And then they got better and better and better. Then Soulshine and May, and nothing that really compared to Soulshine since. And then we get these two versions, and it's become clear. The thing that I want to say is that when you have a song and you say, oh, well, this is a jam vehicle now, what does that mean exactly? Does it mean, oh, we have the willingness to jam out of this song? Because I think there's a bunch of songs you can say that about with them. But when you call something a jam vehicle, you get almost excellent jams every time that are multifaceted. And that's what you're getting in this one. It's not just like one bliss jam or like, this particular thing that they do is like a funk jam. And it's cool. There are several things happening in here. It has depth. It is dynamic. It's exciting. And the two versions they've played so far are somewhat similar, if you ask me, in terms of how they flow.
Sure.
That's the good stuff. This is what Madhavan does. Said it that way. And this is what Wisteria Lane does. And there's only a few songs really that they have that are just guaranteed to take you on that journey every time they play it. EMG is now one of those songs. And amazing, great. Thank goodness, because they needed more of those. And it is a statement when they play the song to open the second set. They are saying that's what we think this song is, because that is a traditional slot to just go out there and blow your doors in. It's also a traditional slot for playing creatures, but we won't let that get away from the point I'm trying to make here.
Yes. So I found a picture of the set list. So we had Mr. Action, All I Need, lead up with action and brackets. So maybe they were going to sandwich Mr. Action, which I'm unsure. I'm unsure how they were going to do that. You bring Jeff on and you start talking disco.
Start talking biscuits talk.
Anyway,
are we doing that now?
Yeah, no, we are not.
That's what it means. Invert it.
Flea, Dogs, Inside Out, Moby, Flow Down, and then Not Alone, So Ready there. So I think they weren't expecting probably to jam out, All I Need and Flea as long as they were, I guess. But I'm again, glad they're leaving themselves open to doing something like that. And then second set, completely different from what we got. Arrow, Jive 1, Jive 2, Jive Lee, Pancakes, Dark Horse, Pancakes, SOS with the White Lights Encore. They audibled a much better second set than that one is. I will say that. I think we've talked about how, the three jives can kind of throw off the flow of a set if not used properly. And I think that another pancake sandwich that probably results in 25 minutes of, we're going to rip Pancakes for a bit and then we're going to fade into Dark Horse and then rip Dark Horse and not really jam it and then rip the ending of Pancakes. I think what we got was much better.
Agreed.
That's my thought on that.
You never know.
Yeah. You never know what it's going to sound like until they play it, but it's hard to argue a case against what we got last night.
100%. 100%. Well, speaking of what we got last night, this Arrow, I said last night, this is the Goose Miss Hunger site of arrows. Very, very similar jam here where, first of all, this is a 17-minute arrow or so, right, Neil? You said 17
minutes. That was my watch.
This is a 17-minute arrow. And normally, if I see a 17-minute arrow on the set list, I'm gonna be like, okay, well, there's 6 minutes of jamming in that, right? Yeah. Like they, and they're gonna peak arrow for a few minutes and then probably finish or segue into something. This is not the case. They don't dwell in the arrow jam for very long once they start. You know, it takes off pretty quickly. And I call it the Goose Miss Hunger site of arrows, because much like the Goose Miss Hunger site, you have this very simple repeating pattern from Peter on clav, and he doubles it on piano as well after a while. With Rick, you know, I kind of said it like Rick coloring underneath Peter. You know, Peter's occupying that lead space and really kind of driving where the band goes just by playing this repeating phrase. And Rick is hanging back again. So another thing on his tone, like he has that like super gritty and punchy and like it's right in your face, but he also has the ability to just soften and be in the background like he did in this jam, which is really cool. And then obviously eventually he comes forward, brings us to a great peak. And then we come down into a couple minutes of like just uneasy jamming. And that vibe that they hit towards the end of Arrow reminded me a lot of the Arakoff from TED Tapes 2024. Very similar, you know, kind of vibe from mostly from Cotter, what he was doing there. But man, I loved this jam a lot. You knew they were going to play Arrow at some point because Matt from Math was in the building.
You got a good one.
I don't know if he liked it. He probably didn't. It was really good, so he probably didn't like it.
Yeah, we'll have to check in.
Yeah, we'll have to ask him. But man, this Arrow was awesome. Jeff, what did you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's really good Arrow. I mean, everything you said there, I'm bored with all of it. I'm actually also very impressed with your brain and how you just pulled that Arakoff.
Yeah, no, that went through my mind.
Yeah, but my brain is way crazier with music than most people. But you do things. You do things.
Thank you.
But you know what? To me, what was great about this Arrow was kind of what was really great and interesting about the half step that came later. So just to touch upon a little bit, the progression that it was built around initially is kind of like a post-rock jam. Like if you think about like a major key post-rock jam, like think about the band like Do Make Say Think or something like that. You get these floaty little major key post-rock earworms, and it's Rick and Peter coming up with these and just kind of creating a vibe out of them and writing it for a while in this, you know, indie groove way that Goose does, until all of a sudden the decision pops in to turn on the Afterburners in some form or another. And the way this happened between those two jams was different in each, but it was the same basic idea. And it was, you know, they got away from the type of jamming they were doing in the first set and moved into this new thing that also excites me, being kind of like an indie rock nerd and liking post rock. You know, I love the fact that Goose visits those type of territories and, you know, built, you know, really some of the anchor points of the second set around one of my other nerdy obsessions about their niche jamming styles.
Yeah. I mean, I, like you, am very excited about that kind of stuff, and definitely hearing a lot of that last night. And it doesn't all have to be jazz, man. You know, it doesn't have to be 7 different, you know, chord expressions to, you know, achieve something that is like high art. It could be like this, where, like Ryan said, and like Jeff said, a repeating phrase that just sounds good and then gets explored. That's not necessarily jazzy, you know? And I feel like there is this jam band need to elevate and make it super artsy, and it doesn't always have to be necessarily. It can just sound great. I mean, that's the magic of Peter, right? Is right there. Find that phrase, repeat it, you know, get everybody going, and then Rick builds a riff off of that. Mm-hmm. And then, as you said, turns on the Afterburners, and then they go into full jam band mode. I mean, that's the shit, you know? So yeah, man, like I, like you, am very excited about that stuff. I was saying that about the half step later, which I will say when we get to the half step thing, but definitely has a vibe to it that is very, very not jam bandy, and that is exciting stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I want to touch on briefly for the, you know, Interlude 2, Jive 1 that comes next. First of all, Interlude 2 coming back again after 2 shows.
Short rest.
But I mean, play it every time you want to play Jive 1. You know, I don't care. The second best interlude, you know, as people say. But this is the cooldown slot of the set. And I love that Jive 1 is the cooldown slot of the set. And by cooldown, obviously, I don't mean it's a ballad, because it's not, and it rips. But this is the not a jam song of the set. You know, that they're using this as like a bridge between Arrow and Half Step in this set. And I think it's really cool in this slot. Like I'm all for a Jive 1 mid-second set kind of used the way it was last night. I think, you know, if they had played Jive 1, Jive 2, Jive Lee here, I don't think it lands as well. But I think it kept the energy up from the arrow, especially, you know, you're not stopping. You're getting from the arrow jam into the interlude. You're getting a ripping Jive 1, and then they're going into half step and right back into the jams. So I think, like, again, they're experimenting with stuff set list wise here. Like, this is a really cool placement for this song that we haven't really seen a lot before. And I'm all for trying out different songs in this slot because there's a lot of potential for for so many Goose songs that kind of have their place as an opener or a closer or whatever that, you know, might work in the middle of the second set as a, you know, breather or as a stepping stone per se. But yeah, do you guys have any thoughts on the interlude jive here?
Yeah, I mean, I'll jump in. I mean, it was great flow. Yeah, as you said, this whole section kind of served to connect arrow and half step, which were kind of these tent poles, whereas this was what happened in between, which could have just been like a glance over it, whatever happens, you know, hey, we're going to burn through a song and then start the next. But this was really good flow moving between them, and I thought it worked. You know, like a song has to serve the set, and the band has to serve the song, and if they had played a Jive 1 that was just kind of like a standard, just funky Jive 1, I don't know if it would have worked here. But this didn't sound like a first set Jive 1, you know.
Yeah.
It popped a little bit harder, you know. It felt more consequential, and it worked in the spot. At least that's how it felt in the room. And you know, this was also my first interlude too, so that was nice, and my first Inside Out. So yeah, it's nice when you chip off a first time scene.
Yes.
After you've seen this band a bunch, you know. So I got 2 of them last night, which was cool.
Stats.
Yeah.
Neil, any thoughts on the jive here before we move on to half step?
Yeah, I thought it was fine. I love interlude too. It is the best interlude. Everyone agrees. And it just has such a cool vibe to it, especially in a show where, again, we're just going to overuse it. I'm just going to beat it to death, where Goose finds their way into the ether quite a bit. So you have that Pink Floyd vibe, because I think that just oozes Pink Floyd interlude too, at least to me. I don't know, maybe you guys disagree. I thought that was neat. The other thing I'll say, I like that it was just interlude 2 Jive 1. The only place that the Jive Fecta works, or actually even like one Jive and a Jive Lee, is to close the first set, in my opinion. That's the only place where I like it. I do not like the Jive Fecta in the second set. I don't know if it's actually ever been done, but the idea of it is appalling. Like, I don't know, Ryan, you know when they've been done. I don't know off the top of my head. But in any case, this is okay. This is fine where it is. I do like it in the cooldown slot, just as, like, we were saying this maybe 1 or 2 shows ago, where I was saying Goose is just doing different things with different slots, and that's exciting. You know, like Butter Rum show opener,
right?
Know,
or missed opener,
stuff like that. Yeah. So that stuff's neat, and this and that slot also cool. You know, this could have been your ocean. Like, well, it couldn't have been. They wouldn't have played it that
right. But I mean, it could have been like a 726, which would have been excellent.
Well, that would have been
well.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, so would your ocean. Honestly, I love that song. But yeah, moving on to half step, Neil. I know you have a lot of thoughts on this half step, so just take it through. Talk about the half step.
Oh, I'm not really going to spill my guts here. I just have a couple things to say. I mean, 1, this jam is exceptional. 2, underscoring a thought from earlier in the show about Goose getting there quickly. Oh boy, did they get there fast. And another thought about this jamming style of not necessarily being a jam band or like a jazzy kind of thing or a funky kind of thing. It's a very different style. That is what you hear here. It sounds this, when you talk about indie groove, this is what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And I think, I don't know, I'm just going to say it. And Jeff, I think you agree. You were kind of making that point earlier. And I think they get there really easily as long as Peter's playing guitar. It's really easy to kind of sound post rock if you do the 2 guitar thing. So yeah, man, this is really good. It's only 16 minutes or so. It's still going to end up on my playlist because of the spaces that they find. If they took that out to like 24 minutes doing just this one thing, or maybe they added like a section on that was like kind of meh after it, then everybody's going to be like, oh yeah, that's on my playlist. But like, we have to think about this band differently. We can't write off these short jams and say, well, there's not enough. Because I think there is enough here because they get there immediately.
Sure.
There's no goofing around. They get right down to business. Somebody gets an idea, somebody picks right up on it, and they're making beautiful music right off the bat. This is not typical Goose. This is not what we're used to. Certainly is not what we were getting in 2019, 2020, maybe parts of 2021.
Not what we were getting for most of 2024 either.
Yeah, fair. So I think this jam, I'm like inflating this jam a little bit because I don't think it's that good. But I think it is emblematic of the things that I'm really excited about Goose. A different approach to jamming and the speed in which they get to that approach.
Yes. Jeff?
I mean, they crushed the half step. I talked about what I like best about it earlier. Neil just touched upon it again. Really well done. Maybe this is a combination of attendance bias and only having re-listened to it once so far, but I'm ready to hasty rank this as the best half step since 2022.
Wow, better than the Fox?
I'm glad you said it and not me.
Well, I don't share the same amount of.
Oh, right. You don't really like the Fox.
A lot of folks do.
Okay,
No,
well,
I like it. I mean, I ranked it. I ranked it pretty high. But I think after only one re-listen so far, I would rank this half step higher on last year's playlist than I would rank the Fox. And but I don't have the Fox ranked nearly as high as a lot of people. So people,
Sure.
I mean, isn't it a 2 seed? Like
It is
something crazy like that. Yeah,
It is a 2 seed.
I think I had it at like a 6 or a 7 seed.
I had it at a 3 seed, but
yeah, maybe an 8. But
anyway.
but yes. Yeah, so at any rate, and I don't think there's been a half step on that level since 2022. So last night for me, I'd put it slightly over the Fox, which means best since 2022. Great version.
Crazy.
No matter where you put it, it's a great version.
Fair.
Woo woo.
Yeah, hasty train. Let's go. Let's go.
And then from there, I mean, we get So Ready to close the set, and then White Lights Encore. And I mean, you know, I posted this last night. Like I am very firmly team slow. I'd like to shout out the band Animal that I played with on Monday night because we played So Ready, and I think I like the song a lot more now that I've played it. A bunch in rehearsal and at a show. But last night's was crazy just in terms of energy and the force behind the performance. Rick does still have the sauce pedal on his board. We have that confirmation at least.
Yep.
Would like to hear it in a jam. But it's still there, folks. So don't worry. The sauce is around. And then a hot White Lights Encore. Not much else to say about that other than, great way to close out the show. And I'm so excited about it tonight. Jeff, any thoughts on So Ready and White Lights?
Yeah, I mean, it was a good So Ready, and the White Lights went into some really cool space. I think it was a good placement for those versions of those songs. I mean, like after the first set, it was all cerebral and weird, crazy music. They threw in Flow Down at the end for, I think almost just to save the energy in the room for the people that would have fucking died without something like that.
Yeah, right. That's fair.
And you got to play to the room, not just the weirdos. You got to play to everybody. I think it's Michigan, so there's a lot of weirdos. But and then similarly here at the encore, for the end of the second set and the encore, they threw in a couple of just banger songs, vibier stuff, but they played it well and it worked well to close the show. Total vibe score.
Amazing. Neil?
A couple thoughts. When a set flows really well, you can get away with closing a show with So Ready and having people not be pissed off. So there's that. Because I think that can kill a show. It's been done. We've talked about it on this podcast before. When they put So Ready in the wrong spot, it can really be a bummer.
Labyrinth So Ready at the Fox last year.
Okay, so there you go.
Set too.
And yeah, closing a show with So Ready it's a dicey, tricky thing, and they nail it here. It works really, really well in this slot. I'll say that. Light show in this, by the way. Oh my god,
ridiculous!
What? Like I don't know. I am impressed by the ways in which Andrew Getty reinvents the light rig. Because he does come up with creative stuff. Like you could look at other lighting guys and be like, well, I'm going to do exactly what Kuroda does. And, I'm going to get this thing that's going to move around. He doesn't do that. Like he finds things that just look sick. And that it was nuts what it looked like. Go watch the video. I assure you, you won't be let down. And then the White Lights should be played more, one. And I love it in the encore slot. You had a tiny bit of a jam. in like a real jam, not just like a guitar solo, which is kind of what you're used to in an encore that like kind of extends a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Like a hot tea encore, you're just gonna get Rick solo, Peter solo, you're out, or the other way around. But still, but this one you get something that sounds good. This is no Rob Zombie Dragula White Lights, but that one was like the best one ever. But it's still
love the Rob Zombie White Lights.
Knew I had to bring that up.
That doesn't get old.
It's never going to get old because that was so sick. There's more people should be excited about that one. They really should. In any case, I love it in that slot. They should do it more often. I don't know why they don't. They have a hand. If you go look at the encores they play over time, they don't really have a giant bag that they pull from.
It's true.
It's pretty small. So, I mean, this one should be done more often. That's all. That's my thoughts. Good show, front to back, though. If you can end with these two things, and we three can be so positive about the show, then they've done something right beforehand.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Yeah, I mean, again, with the unpredictable set list last night, I don't know what's coming tonight. Really, you can predict it. Like, do we get Hot Love for Valentine's Day? Well,
you get Hot Love every third show, so you can count on it tonight.
Right. But do we get Big Modern tonight or tomorrow? There's so many things that are variable at this point in the tour. We know.
Do we get the Not Alone that was on the set list?
Exactly. I really, really hope so.
I hope you guys get it. I really do. I normally wish for bad things to happen to you set list wise, but this time I hope you guys get that Not Alone.
I'd also call out that if they wanted to continue on with some of the things that they were doing during first set last night and second set's jamming styles, I think that a great piece for that could be either tonight or tomorrow night, could be to play Butterflies and jam out at the end of it, because I think,
now you're speaking my language.
That fits into the vibe that was carrying on in this show. So, Butterflies is always welcome, but Butterflies that gets a just big cascading jam of chaos out of it.
20 minutes of droning.
So exciting.
Dude, sign me up.
This all the time,
yeah. Just make noise for 20 minutes. Anyway, we've got a show to go to in another couple of hours, which I am very, very much looking forward to. Of course, shout out to, again, No Curfew Venues. Huge fan. Huge fan. And we would like to remind everybody that, of course, tour is happening, but so is the Jam of the Year bracket. Polls are still up every day. We are in our final region of the first round right now. A couple big ticket jams up today. Cincy Thatch. Some people are calling it the Jam of the Year. I don't know. It might be if you don't go vote. Or it might not be if you don't go vote, depending on how you feel about it. But go vote. Get involved. Today is Friday. It's Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day to everybody. Let's see if I can get this to work on the first try. Yeah, I did it.
Look at that.
There we go. Amazing. Well, of course, we will be back here tomorrow afternoon at 3:30 p.m. Eastern to talk about tonight's show as we gear up for the tour finale. But it's going to be awesome, as always, whether you're online watching the stream or at the show. Get involved. Chat with us on social media. It's going to be a good one. Jeff, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
And I will see you shortly when we get to the venue.
Enjoy your tier 2 pizza, Jeff.
What's that?
Your tier 2 pizza. Your tier 2.
There you go.
I know it can't all be New Haven.
There we go.
Yeah.
At least Vickers isn't here to eat that one. Anyway, everybody have a fantastic rest of your Friday. Great start to your weekend. We will see you tomorrow. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Always Almost There Day After Show.